Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It's Saturday, September 6th, 2025, and on Saturdays we talk about sports and sometimes humor. And so at the close of this week on resilience, we're going to talk about sporting resilience today. We constantly hear about individuals and especially teams overcoming adversity. How many times have we heard that phrase, right? It's almost become trite when asking a player about their team's success, right? And they'll say, well, we had a lot of injuries, but we stuck together and we overcame all kinds of adversity this year. So yes, to some extent, that's actually quite true then. You can make the case that their ability to rise above the noise and the distractions and the injuries and the criticisms, all of that would be evidence of their resilience. They were able to stick it out, bounce back, and achieve whatever it is they're able to achieve. But what would be the ultimate examples then of true resilience in sports? Not necessarily in terms of who won the championships or the gold medals, but what about the ultimate examples simply of people just really bouncing back from, career or life-threatening injuries or what have you, just doing something amazing in sports, even if they didn't win? So think of the case of a Rudy Rudiger, right? He was too small to play football at 5'6" and so forth, but he managed to make the Notre Dame football team and even earned a scholarship in his final year. Maybe you saw the movie aptly titled Rudy back in 2005, and it starred Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah, in other words, the actual actor Sean Astin, who played Rudy. And there have been plenty of fictionalized accounts of athletes who've been incredibly resilient and been able to get to the highest levels of their sports and participate in, against all odds in the areas that they love. But then there's also these incredible real life athletes who have been unbelievably resilient and been able to get to the highest levels in their respective sports. And so here are just a few examples. This is not meant to be exhaustive or even a top 10 list or what have you, but these are just some examples of the people that I've watched in many instances, or at least read about in some detail over the years. So you may have heard of the case of Bethany Hamilton. Those aren't familiar with her. In 2003, she's a professional surfer. She lost her arm in a shark attack. But undeterred, she returned to competitive surfing just a year later and has become something of a role model in terms of resilience and determination. And she's penned her autobiography titled Soul Surfer, a true story of faith, family, and fighting to get back on the board. So that one I highly recommend if you want to be inspired, shall we say. Or there's the case of Monica Seles. Some of you will recall perhaps or know about her. She was a tennis player. She was at the top of the tennis world, quite frankly, back in 1993, when unfortunately she was attacked by a crazed fan of one of her opponents and stabbed in the shoulder back in 1993. And so the attack, not surprisingly then, left her both physically and emotionally traumatized. But yet again, demonstrating remarkable resilience, Seles eventually returned to professional tennis. And even though she couldn't quite capture the same form that she had before she was attacked, before the stabbing, she still managed to get back on the court and even won the 1996 Australian Open Championship. So that's pretty darn good. So again, her story's been documented as well in her autobiography, Getting a Grip: On My Game, My Body, My Mind, Myself. Then there's the case of Niki Lauda, the Formula One racing driver, who suffered severe burns and lung damage in this horrific crash back in 1976 in the German Grand Prix. And astonishingly, Lauda returned to racing just 6 weeks after the accident and ultimately won 2 more world championships in 1977 and 1984. So again, he has an incredible story of resilience. It's been portrayed in the movie Rush and in his autobiography, To Hell and Back. And speaking of racing, I remember well the case of Alex Zanardi. He was a highly successful kart racer, but a major crash in the 2001 American Memorial resulted in the amputation of both his legs. And yet he returned to racing less than 2 years later after the accident and competed in the European Tour Championships in 2003 and 4 and then in the World Tour car championship between 2005 and 2009, and even managed to secure 4 wins during that period. And then there's one of my favorites is Jim Abbott. Abbott made it to the show. That's the major league in baseball. So he became a major league pitcher, and he enjoyed a 10-year career pitching. When he retired, he had a record of 87 wins and 118 losses. So he lost more games than he won, and he had an ERA, an earned run average, of about 4.25. So all of this is pretty average. These are average or pedestrian numbers, as they say, for a baseball pitcher. But there's one detail that sets Abbott apart, and that is he only has one hand. So he'd pitch with his left hand. That was his, his obviously his only hand. He'd pitch with his left, and then after releasing the ball, he'd transfer his glove, which he had on the stump of his right arm, and he put the glove on, and then he became a fielder with his left hand. And if he actually had to field the ball like a grounder, then again he would transfer the glove, take the ball out of the mitt, and throw to the appropriate base, whatever that might be. And there's one more thing about Jim Abbott that I forgot to mention. He also threw a no-hitter for the New York Yankees back in 1993. So that's pretty amazing. I'll leave a link of a 10-minute video about Abbott's story in the links below. And speaking of overcoming physical limitations, have you heard about Og de Souza? So he's a Brazilian skateboarder, and he starred in a music video by Passion by AWOL Nation. So de Souza lost the use of his legs after contracting polio as a child, and he originally used a skateboard as a means of transportation. But then he actually perfected the sport and became something of a shredder in the terminology, okay? And he's gone on to inspire skateboarders around Brazil and around the world. And so I'll leave a link to the AWOL Nation music video. If you haven't seen that, it's pretty cool. So these are just a few examples from a universe of inspirational stories of resilience in sports. There are so many cases of athletes who do whatever they can just to be able to compete in the sport that they love, right? Even right down to the local level, right? There are so many countless personal stories of young and old alike who have just taken on these incredible and overcome these incredible challenges just to be able to do what they love. And the vast majority of these cases, of course, we'll never, ever hear about. But maybe you have some examples in your personal life from which you draw inspiration. I certainly do. And to be honest, the main reason I even watch sports any longer is precisely because I'm interested in the comebacks, or the people who, again, demonstrate resilience in one form or another. They've overcome incredible odds just to be there. I don't really care about, who wins championships or gold medals and that sort of thing. I'm just inspired, if you will, and reminded again and again of the amazing resilience of the human spirit. So that's what I look for mainly in sports these days. Okay, as ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance, and inspire and inspire and inspire. You never know what might come tomorrow, and you never know what you might be able to accomplish that you never thought you could, but you got to give it a try. All right, we'll see you soon.